Welcome back to Dice Down Gaming. This week we are looking at the new Steamroller 2026. We're going to talk about the scenarios we like, scenarios we don't like, though I like all of them. Maybe our favourite one, how we think about it, and the games we've played. What do we think about the games on them, and have a general catch up. Most important question of every week. How are you, Dan? How you been?
I'm all good, thank you. Managed to get a game in on Wednesday versus Necrofactorium, which was good. I used my Dusk for the first time since the update. Used Thyrophil, her feet amazing, love it, and the ability to give out. I'm really happy with Thyrophil. And then obviously last Sunday we had your Steamroller, your Jan update Steamroller event, which was great. Took Pascal in 4 games. Lost my first one, won the other 3. Ended up coming 4th. But yeah, it was good. Pascal's pretty sweet. It was a good game. Loving
No,
Steamroller.
Nice. That sounds good. I've had a decent week. I mean, I've played 7 games this week, so I've had a good week. Bouncing between all 3 factions and different warlocks and different warcaster. Well, all warlocks. I've only played Fury at the moment, but yeah, have a great time. Absolutely loving the new pack and everything it's brought. And in general, the January update. Also very happy with how that's come and landed. And I think every faction is going to be asking some hard questions of every other faction now. So yeah, I think it's looking really good. So we'll jump into Steamroller. How we set up a game has not really changed. We don't have to worry about the spell rack, which I'm all for.
That was a big change that we're very happy. I think we were both saying that the last year we hoped that it went, especially for new players. And it's I'm glad it's gone.
Yeah, I think a much easier just to look at your opponent's list and a warlock, and even for myself who just started Shadow Flame Shard, trying to understand what a warlock does when you could also rack these 10 spells was a bit I'm not really sure. But now you can look at the warlock's card and you understand they're all the spells they have. It makes it a lot easier to understand. So I think we're both happy with the rack change.
Definitely.
And as well as that, how you set up the game hasn't changed, so that's all the same. There's been a small adjustment to how we score steamrollers in the sense that solos now count as 2 models for flags. I've really enjoyed that change. How about you?
I think it's fantastic. I love the fact that we now, even more so, that list diversity, you need a balanced list. You need to have some solos, you need to have some units, you need to have some cohort models. You can't just rely on having one of each or none of something, which would prevent that sort of spam list being just really successful and just really potent, which I like. And it's something that War Machine Mark 2 and Mark 3 did a little bit with how different zones can only be scored by certain things. I think it's great that solos have got their place back, and the strength of the solo now being able to score that flag, especially when flags are in a lot of the scenarios. Definitely, I really appreciate it. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I really like that. And there's a lot of some of the scenarios have flags on really the edges of the tables. So some sort of solos that are hard to kill and can fight themselves. I think they've really got a place on some of them scenarios that can play by the edge of the board and fight themselves. And it's nice. I think it's a really great change. And now everything, like I say, cohort, unit, battle engine, solos have something they score, right? So I think really good. Let's get on to the first scenario of the packet. It is trench warfare, and now I don't think this one changed.
Because I don't think it has changed, but can I just make a couple of points of what just quality of life changes to the Steamroller document. Firstly, everything having a measurement on it makes it so much easier. So that's great. I understand why the red players at the bottom pushing up, because it's the attacker. Whenever we play a map on other game systems, it feels like you're at the bottom and you're pushing up. You're like proactively going up. But just because that was different to last Steamroller, the amount of times I'm getting my document and going, okay, right, I need to turn it up, go down, and things like that. But I think quality of life, just to make it really easy for people to set up, I think they're great changes. Just really super clear. When I think back to Mark 4 when I first started, when we had the different symbols for different things. There's like a triangle for a flag, and there was something else, a square for a cache, I think it was. Again, just making it really clear. I think that's such a good way to make sure that everything's really accessible for new players as well. If they turn up to a steamroller or if they're playing these scenarios to get practice in.
Yeah, I think that is a really, really great shout. Definitely the having measurements for both players. It was always really annoying. You're like, oh, where do I put my flag? Oh, well, you will work out mine and then work it out for you.
Yeah,
Just having it for both players is really good. Yeah, and having it, like you say, like the attackers pushing up. I think that that is a sensible as well. Quick shout out to Veiled Darkness in the chat. He said, "Let's go. Thanks for joining us, mate." And Damien says, "Turn to advantage on a few of the scenarios is insane." But there are a few scenarios which I think are good for if you can score first. But we'll dive into that.
I think just quickly, just on that note, just quickly, I think last steamroller there was that I don't know if this was just something I heard. There was almost a perception that going first was really strong to get that board presence. But actually, I think it's good that there are some scenarios where you're actively favoured going second and being that blue player. So I think that's good, just generally.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's strong going first or second. There's definitely pros and cons to both, and I think I had a game today, and I was chatting with Dean about it for a while, and there's certainly things you give away by going first, and things you gain by going second, but also vice versa. So I certainly don't think when I'm given actually nearly all my games I played in the new update I've been given second, right? So I've had
Yeah,
to nearly I think I've played 10 games and I've gone first twice. So I'm very used to going second, and you do get a lot from going second. Your opponent has to choose how much they contest, and some
yeah,
people will just contest too much and give you a lot of their army they don't need to. Some people
yeah,
might contest with the wrong model. So your opponent on their turn too, as long as you've not run your whole army into their charge range and they get a very good turn, they have some hard decisions to make on their turn too as well. So I don't, I think, but I think there's also some strong scenarios for scoring first, which we will go into. But no, overall, it's a great shout with the quality of life for the map. So Trench Warfare is our first one. This is exactly the same as it was before. Your own objectives give you cover and blast resistance for small or medium based warriors. There's lots of points to score. You still don't score your own flag, but there is 8 points to score every turn while the catches are alive. Not too much to say for me on Trench Warfare. I really like it. I think sometimes if you're planning on shooting and Trench Warfare comes up, it might be a bit of a thorn in your side. But apart from that, a really active scenario with lots to score. What's your
I
thoughts?
I think it's a really good scenario to teach someone to get the sort of. I think for scenario one, I think it's great to just be able to say, okay, here's all the elements you could see in the Steamroller document. They're all on this one mission with caches, flags, and all the objectives. But because those caches are like, say, they're more central, and you're still fighting in the middle a lot, you're still going to have assassination runs because your castles are going to be typically a bit closer. I think it's just a really solid scenario. I love a scenario also that we'll get onto this later. That yeah, you've got the different objectives and caches and flags. But there's no faff. There's no extra. It's like this is it. You set it up at the start of the game. Done. I'm a big fan of Trench Warfare.
Yeah, and I think like you say, especially for a new player, there's a catch, there's a 40, there's a 50, there's a flag. Nothing moves. Okay, you have to remember that you have cover, but even for the first time you play it with a new player, you can just say forget about the cover. We'll just
Yeah,
score. We'll just score these objectives.
yeah,
Yeah, really great scenario. Not too much to say, and I'm glad it's still there.
yeah.
Next up, we have Two Fronts, which has seen a lot
But
of changes.
yeah,
Do you wanna go take us through what's changed on Two Fronts, mate?
so two fronts, you're not getting your scoring. The extra you get for scoring isn't a +2, which is huge. And also the scenario elements themselves are the dimensions have changed, so you're less likely to score. I don't know. I've not got them out on the table. But I don't know whether you can score both 50s with a single 50 mil model. Have you tested it yet? I don't know if you have. You
I have not tested that either.
know,
Maybe with
not.
a colossal.
Hey, with a colossal, I think you can, and I wonder with an 80 you can. But again, it just stops that last trench warfare. Just two fronts, sorry, last two fronts. It was very easy to score both the 40s and the 50s with a single unit or single cohort model if you just as long as you were the only thing to control it. But then you got the score for both of them, then you got the double score extra, so you can have a huge point swing. You can still get that point swing with the extra VP for scoring both 40 or both 50. Um, but just the dimensions make it means you've got to have really two units or two models, which is great. And I think it got another really solid scenario. I'm a big fan of two fronts. I actually liked it in the last Steamroller document, but I know that it was definitely a real sign where if there was someone that was less experienced, you could just easily just win turn two if you're the second player, because you're like, right, I've double score, I've got all the bonuses. Good luck. You've now got to stop everything. Yeah, I'm really happy with two fronts. I think that it's easy to set up. Again, another scenario that get on with the game. I actually thinking about it the way I don't know if they meant to with the document. Actually, the first three scenarios are pretty easy to set up. Apart from we'll get to the third one where they start to get more complex with how things move. Yeah, the two fronts I think is really solid. Again, I think it's great to start someone teaching the game or teaching them steamroller. Sorry, should I say?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there, mate. It's really hard to score 40 and the two 40s with one unit. I'm not sure if you can, but if you can, it's very hard. I've not done it yet.
Yeah,
And 50, you definitely need to be a colossal to try it, and I've not tried it yet either. And like you
yeah,
say, reduction in points for scoring both, so there'll be less situations where the second player, gets to score 6 points to the opponent's zero, and then the opponent can't come back. I quite like it as again quite a nice simple one, not too many moving parts. Scoring's quite nice and easy. Not too many objectives to worry about either, just the five and easy to set up.
yeah,
So I'm glad it stayed. I'm glad they did adjust it so there'll be less turn two, turn three. I got caught off guard and I've lost sort of six
yeah,
points.
yeah,
And then it's harder to score both as well. So if you are scoring both, it's not as easy to do.
yeah.
Really great scenario, and I'm glad to see it stay in. And next up, we've got Wolves at our heels. So this has, again, slightly changed, and I think for the better. Previously, you would push the 40 millimeter nearer to the 24 inches line, and if you got it over, you would get some bonus points. There's slightly changed, so now you add a token to the 40, and now that's pushed closer towards the corresponding 50. So if I score my 40, I can add a token, push it towards my 50, so it gets closer to my opponent. It's harder for me to score the closer I push it. But if I do get to 3 tokens, I can get 3 points, and it's the first person to get 3 tokens. Apart from that, you've got the kill box, which after turn three gets higher and higher. So you've got less space, or lower and lower if you're at the top. Less space to play, and the longer the game's on, the closer your warlocks get or warcasters get to each other. Again, there's 6 points to score. So another really live scenario, and I think the changes they've made are really good. How do you feel about the changes they've made to Wolves at Hills?
I believe we played this round two at the Steamroller last week. I think I played against Rid. And for me, I think it was again a really solid scenario. I think what I like about Steamroller and what I like about that, because Steamroller is ultimately that sort of more competitive play as a document. I really like it when it's a case of here's the scenarios, we can set it up and we're playing, and it's a lot of skill based and it's competitive in the sense that we're not going to have arguments over what's happening next, a bit like other game systems, or like how we score, and there's nothing too convoluted. We'll get to something later, which is a sort of something I'd like to fix. But I think actually, again, really solid scenario. I like the fact that there's no caches. I'm not as big a fan of caches overall, but I think actually it worked really well. It was the same when we played it. Me and Rid played a game where because of terrain and because of Pasca's feet and placement and things, he was unable to then go and contest too much. So I did end up winning in his turn three. But otherwise, I think it's again a really solid scenario. Really happy it stayed. I love the increase of kill box. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. There's nothing too complicated to manage. I think once you've played it once, you understand how you score the 40s, and maybe one time you'll get caught out that your opponent gets their third token, you lose on scenario, you're like, okay, that's how it works. I don't think there's too much to manage compared to other scenarios in the packet, let's say. And I think another solid scenario, 6 points to score every turn. That's very much a live scenario, and you're sort of edging towards this climax of a smaller kill box, plus someone might score their 40mm by getting their third token. Yeah, I really like Wolves at Hills, and it's another great scenario, I think. Next up, we go on to the first of the new scenarios, and this one is pressure point. Dan, you can run us through that.
Okay, let's talk about how if you're the defender or blue player, you're choosing where 4 flags are going. That's a big bonus if you're going second. If you've chosen to go, if you've got the table side, if you won the roll, if you chose the table side, you've then chose also where those 4 flags are going. And I think onto the choice of flags and the flag placement, actually, I was a bit worried thinking, is it going to be another colour guard? But actually, it's pretty easy to set up. Most tables are going to have terrain within 5 inches of those flags or multiple options of it, because the way that most tables should be set up. I really like it. I do think going second is really strong on it. But it's not overpowered, because that 50 is still scoring 2 compared to the flag. So what I had a conversation on Wednesday with my opponents that some people will just go, right, I'm just going for the centre, because then I can take control of that and then just be double scoring, and I can score my own flags that are on my side. So I'll be scoring 4. Other people might go, do you know what? I'm going to leave the centre. I'm just going to go for those 4 flags. And so I'll score you 4-2 each time. And I like the fact that when you play that, it seems like it's going to change quite often, depending on how many solos you've got in your list. It's going to mean that, there might be times where you're just going to try and snipe a solo, which my opponent did really well in round 3, I think it was, at the Steamroller that you ran. Paul managed to snipe off Iris and Bruno turn 1, I think it was, or maybe even turn 2, with long range shooting. I was like, oh, this is not good for my flag control. But otherwise, really happy with it. I think I liked Colour Guard, but I think Pressure Point is better. I think Pressure Point is something, though, that you need to be aware of when setting up tables, but not as much as Colour Guard. So I think that's pro sort of tournament organizer. And I think that actually it's really easy to play, but it's going to be different every time you play it, because your table's going to be different. Whoever chooses can choose that. You can have points where you want your opponent's flag to be as far back so they can score it, but they're keeping something back, or you bring it right forward and you're going to be trying to contest it. I think pressure points can be one of those scenarios which we're going to play throughout the year, and you're going to have some games where just the matchup and the table makes you think, oh, this is a real struggle, but other times where you're going to think it's great. I think it's a scenario that throughout 2026. People are going to have different experience of it most of the times they play it, and actually I think that's just as good.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like Pressure Point. I think, if most tables having, let's say 13 or 12, say 12 minimum bits of terrain, and they're spread out. I mean, most tables without much effort have got a good choice for the terrain. I think this is one of the first scenarios where, like, those solos that can fight by themselves, or especially solos that can ambush and fight by themselves, really, really good. Some of the bottom 2 flags can end up really close to the side, and jumping a solo and walking on them on is really, really good. So solos in general, good on this one. 4 flags, so solos can run around and score themselves. As you say, I like that most games will be different depending on how the board setups, and then not even like where the terrain is located, but what bits of terrain become flags.
Yeah.
Make it different as well. I think there's a great job that the middle one is worth 2, because I think if you are given first, or you decide to go first, your opponent has to make effort to contest that middle one, and you might be able to score or contest the bottom 2. Typically, the second player probably gets to score their top 2. So there's 2 and there's back and forwards there. I've really enjoyed it so far. I've only played it. I think I played it twice, and I've enjoyed it both times I've played it. And also, again, another nice, simple one. There's not too much to manage. Once you've set your flags out, you just got to score them. So another winner for me. I've really enjoyed Pressure Point. And next up, I get to go through this one. We've got High Stakes. So High Stakes is a new one for the pack. There is a 50 in the middle. There is two flags left and right, sort of centre, just above and below, and there's diagonally two 40mm, right and left, up and below. Now, if you score the 50mm in the middle, you can. Oh, sorry. Well, the 50 and the two scenario terrain is going to start with 5 tokens. Just keep that in mind. Whatever the 50 and the flags have got 5 tokens each. Now, if you score the middle 50 and you're the one scoring it, you can choose to remove D3 tokens from a scenario terrain or the objective. If no one scores it, I believe it's a random 40 or 50, scenario terrain or 50 removes one. So most of the time it's going to take 3 choices, or if no one controls it, 5 turns, very unlikely. So say 3 or 4 turns, player turns, to have a flag or 50 go down to 0 tokens. Now when you get 0 tokens, that scenario terrain or the objective explodes. Now if you're a bit of terrain you can't enter, it's a 3-inch blast, 3 inch within that terrain. Or if you're a bit of terrain you can enter, it's everyone within the terrain. They take a power 14 magical blast damage roll. Then this is how you score the scenario. It's 1 point for everyone, or if a bit of objective or scenario terrain has got down to 0 tokens, you get 1 more VP. That is a lot of explaining for a scenario that actually sometimes nothing will even explode. But if it does explode and you've got something that dies to the explosion, you could lose because it's exploded. How do I feel about this scenario? I think it's sort of they explode so little. I'd rather they just don't explode, because when they do explode, it can really catch someone off guard and it might be sad. In duck and cover, you could play that card to try and negate it. You could not score it with things that die to the explosion. Those two things are plays around. But all in all, I think it's too much text for the scenario. What are your thoughts, Dan?
You said the words right out my mouth. I think when you look at the map, nothing wrong with the map. When you think of trying to control that 50 mil in the centre, nothing wrong with that. I have nothing wrong with. I actually have nothing wrong with the getting extra when it gets down to 0. What I don't like is I don't like the fact that you're rolling a D3. I don't like the fact that you're then suffering a power 14. So if you've got solos, that most of them are going to die to a power 14 damage roll. I don't like the fact that you've got 2 options though, having spoken to people about it. So you could try and take the centre, then you've got that control of where it's removing the counters. But then you could have taken the centre, you could have invested your models into that centre point, roll your D3 and get a 1. Your opponent then can take the centre, roll a D3 and get a 3. I hate scenarios where they have a variant of what could be scored due to a single dice. It's what makes Age of Sigmar scenarios, I think, particularly weak, and I hated it, where you could be making all the good choices, making the right decisions, winning the attrition battle, and all that sort of stuff. But if you roll a 1 and your opponent rolls a 6 when they're rolling D3s or D6 or whatever variance amount, I don't think that is good for Steamroller. However, I think this is a fantastic scenario if you're playing a narrative. I think it's great. I think there's nothing wrong with this scenario if we were playing casually. But I think there'd be nothing wrong with this scenario if we were playing it as a narrative. But if we were, I personally think for it to be in Steamroller, I'd make several changes. Firstly, I'd say when you control the 50 mil, instead, I'd say that you then take a counter off your own 1. So then if you control the 50, you take the counter off. Otherwise, the counters don't go. You mentioned this, though. This is a bit of a gripe of something that's not really going to come into effect that much, because actually, having played it a couple of times, they don't really explode. So that's not really happening. But there's a lot of text, and there's a lot of cognitive load for something that could not happen. And then I would remove the exploding. I think it's okay if you score 1 extra once because it's got down to 0. That's fine if you've had to control the centre, so you're trying to fight over the centre to try and get extra 1 VP, okay. But having that exploding as well, it really, especially in a meta where or in a game system where with a decreased accuracy, so defense has been better. So those armies with higher defense, low armor have had a bit of a tune-up. They've been a bit better. They're going to die to power 14s because typically you have high defense or high armor, and they're going to, Dusk are going to die in droves. Humanoid creatures are going to die in droves. Even I think Marauder crew die to power 14s. Is that right?
They do.
Typically. So, and I don't, I so I say all that. It's not the scenario's bad. I just don't think, compared to the rest of this document, I don't think it fits in Steamroller. I think it's a really nice. I think apart from those elements, I think actually it's not a badly designed scenario. I don't think it's bad designed at all. But I think it will be much better in narrative, much better in casual play, and there could be a couple of tweaks to it, maybe for 2027, that will make it a really good scenario for Steamroller. But when I say all this, it's not because it's dreadful, because half the time this stuff isn't going to even happen, which makes it even less impactful and point. I just think it. I think the idea is nice, but I think the difference between the intent to the implementation to the actual impact it has on the game, I don't think they all match up. That's my hot take on it. Yeah, how do you feel about what I've said? I'm interested.
No, I think first of all, Kelvin, a lovely guy, and I've got a lot of guys joined us in the chat. So thanks for joining us, Kelvin. All love to you. No, I do agree with you. I think first of all, even when I made a video about the Steamroller pack, I had to read this one like when I was making the video like 3 times as I was recording because I was like, I've read it. Is it correct? I don't know. And I think that's too many words for a scenario.
Yeah.
I agree about the D3. I think if I was to suggest a fix, I would probably just have it that they have 3 tokens. You can remove one. There's no explosions, and once you get to 0, it's worth 1 more. So if you control the middle, you can just remove a token from one of them, probably your own. And then, when they get to 0, they're worth 1 more point, but also they don't explode.
That's exactly it.
Right? You got 5 points to play over. You fight over the middle, and maybe at one point one of them's worth more. Apart from that, it's just a nice, simple scenario. There's not too many gimmicks. There's no extra like kill box or cover or anything. Just sort of a nice scenario. So yeah, I agree with everything you said. There's a lot of words for something that sometimes won't happen. It might happen, and like for example, it's a really close scenario. Oh, I've only got this armored 13 that can do this flag. Oh, my opponent rolled a 5 and it had 3 tokens left and it exploded. I lost with that unit and I lost on scenario. It's not really, I think, compared to all the other Steamroller scenarios, something completely out of your control you can lose to because they rolled a 5, not a 2, or a 4 or a 3. So yeah, I don't think it's bad. I think that's the most frustrating thing because after all of that, if nothing explodes, it's quite a good scenario. And you're still trying to understand how you do the tokens and if it explodes or not. But sometimes you might play till turn 4. You spread out all the tokens, nothing explodes, and you're like, oh, that was a lot of rules for nothing actually happened. So I'm not a big fan. I don't hate it. I think they could just simplify it and just sort of have no explosions and have one thing's worth more when at 0.
Yeah. I think one thing as well is if this was a narrative scenario, how fun would it be when you could score but you could explode? That again, that's that moment when when you do get it down to 0 and you make it explode and the unit gets wiped out from scoring it. That's a really cool narrative moment. Just not really the Steamroller compared to the rest of the scenarios which we're carrying on going through.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. I don't think it doesn't feel the same sort of as the other 6 scenarios in the pack, which I think are all really good. And on to the next one, we've got Fault Line, which you will take us through.
So I personally think Fault Line is my favourite scenario. I think it's one I played the most. It's very simple to set up. It's simply each player has 2 40s, each player has a 50. It goes diagonal across, and you're scoring extra. You 1 BP for all of them, but if you score 2 of your own, importantly your own, you get an extra +1. If you score all 3 of your own, you get an extra +1 on top of that. But because the way it's a diagonal, for you to score all 3 of your own, you've got to put far up on one side while defending your own. And I think that's in my games and my experience, that's been less frequent But also, if I have done that, it's meant I've overextended, and then my opponents then hit me back, and I've been able to score as well. I think this is a really, really good scenario. I really enjoy it. I think it's, like I say, easy to set up. It also means that, again, we spoke about how lists are going to change to needing to have, needing to have uh, solos for flags. I think this scenario definitely is one where you want to have multiple units that can go out on their own. You mentioned before about having sort of little groups like combat patrols almost, where you can go out and send maybe a beast or a solo with a unit to try and deal with a problem. I think that's definitely how this scenario can be best played. But I also think it's very easy for you to control your own 40, your own 50, go for the 40 that's closer to you, and still have that fight. But again, you're just going to be actively engaging and thinking about how you can get a scenario and build up the attrition that way. I think it's just a really solid scenario. I will happily play this. I'd happily play this every single game of War Machine, actually.
Yeah, so only in agreement with you here. I think initially when I first read it, I was a bit worried that the person who is going second, it feels very easy to score all of your own ones and contest all of your opponents, and then you go 5-0 up, and then I'm thinking, oh, well, people just lose on turn 3. But actually, in practice, what I've seen is, if you try and do that, so say you're the second player, you score all of your own, and you run something to contest all of your opponents. Typically, all of the stuff that you just use to contest is dead. Then your opponent then contests yours, and you've probably not killed anything of theirs on your turn too. So you're sort of playing behind, and they get 5 points back because they score of their own again. So my initial worry was not really needed. So after I played it a few times, and then secondly, yeah, this is sort of the scenario where I've started putting in like a unit or two that's a good example. In Bodan, so a unit of bears that are cast Inviolable to resolve on, and then a Chosen of the Witch, and that 20 points will run off to the top or bottom. They'll play the game by themselves, and then my whole 80 points will play on the rest of the 2/3 of the board, right? And in Brian Buds, that'll be like Lockerbash Brothers plus a unit or whatever. But I've started sort of putting in a little packet that just goes off, doesn't need to be in my leader's control or doesn't need anything else. It can just go and play the game. I think the scoring of it is really good. And actually, like if you just score your own 40, your own 50, and say one of your opponent's 40, you get 4 points. There's loads of points to offer. It's quite easy to score a decent amount back, so it's quite hard to, not get within 3 of an opponent in a turn. It makes you play really spread. So, if you've got a really, really strong control spell, say like Yana in Old Umbre, is really incredible with loads of war beasts and playing in control, but you can't play the whole game in your control. So you need something to go and do something by itself. I think it's really great. I think there's lots to score, lots of points to score. You have to play all of the board. And it's simple, right? Once you understand if you get a few bonus points for your own objectives, there's nothing else to worry about. Only good things for Fault Line for me.
Yeah, same.
Really good. I'm glad this has been added. Would play again. And last but not least, we've got Payload. But we're not going to grimace when we say it. It's a good payload.
Let's talk about how Payload 2025 worst in the bin scenario. They listened. They took it on board and they fixed it for 2026 because we now have a flag we can score. And it sounds strange, but just being able to score a flag makes this scenario so much better. But also, at the end of each player, you can get the payloads can be able to move. You can be able to move move your 50. You're going to be able to move a cohort model directly towards to get so that's different. Make sure it goes direct towards it. And still everything's 1 VP. So again, you're not getting extra bonuses, but you're just getting at the end of player's turn. You can score 3 VP if your 50 mil is in the area of terrain or is being within 3 inches of the piece of terrain. So that's where you get your 1 bonus. But again, actually, that's not coming up as much. Yeah, I think they've fixed payload, and I'm hoping they're going to do this. What they've done for payload this year is what they're going to do for high stakes next year. That's my 2026 hot take.
That's your hope.
Yeah.
So I think payload's a lot better now. Like you say, previously, because of the way the sort of payload is deployed, your 40 and 50 are very easy for you to score, and the opponent's 40, well, certainly opponent's 50 starts very far away, and the 40 is quite close to you. So I'd find that typically, I'd score my 50 and my opponent would score their 50. We fight over the 40s in the middle. We're not scoring the flag, so we might score 1 or 2 points a turn. There's not much reason for me to go run my whole army up the left flank to try and reach their 50 because it's hard to reach. So there was very little scoring. Now there's 6 points on offer, not 4. And it also gives you a reason to have some of your army on the left-hand side, or, the left-hand side, whatever way you look at it, or the right-hand side if you look at it front on for the second player. So there's a lot more to score every turn. There's a reason to actually spread your army across the board. And one thing I didn't realise in this scenario, which is really sort of interesting, is that there is no range on that movement for the cohort. So you could yeet a heavy up the left-hand side, move your 50, and then bring it back 5 inches towards your cohort, the other side of the board. Really interesting. I think also you could, if people aren't aware of it, you could push it forward. So say you're saying, your threat's 13, okay, I'm out of 13. Then they push their 50 millimeter forward and go towards it, and then they're in 13. I think they'll take a little bit of practice of using that cohort move well. But I think the adjustment to that scoring the flag is really, really good. It's a much better scenario. I no longer sort of roll at them and oh my god, I have to play payload. I just really enjoy it. I mean, I think it's still one of them ones that sometimes you have to be careful about the terrain, because if someone's scenario terrain is much closer to the opponent's, it might be a pain. But you still have to remove it, so I think if you remove it, you really have to try and win on that turn, otherwise you're scoring one less every turn to your opponent. So overall, much improved.
I think it's also interesting that they put 7 scenarios in. I wonder how much that was influenced by. I know we went to the Welsh Masters, and there was that thought of we've got to play one of the scenarios an extra time if there's 7 rounds. Having that 7th scenario, I think, helps. But also having payload as the 7th, most people roll a d6 for which scenario. So it's interesting that actually lots of people are just going to roll a d6, and payload's not going to be an option for them when they're playing up their games. I know they've said to roll a d8 in the document, but lots of, from my experience, people don't necessarily carry a d8 with them. It would be a d6 roll. Okay, payload's not an option. But I think it's good to have an extra scenario, because when events are increasing in number, we're hoping to see War Machine grow and thrive this year. Having that 7 competitive steamroller scenarios in there is really good. Overall, I think it's actually a huge success of a document. I'm really interested to see what comes next. We spoke last year that they spoke about how wanting to really push competitive, narrative, and casual play, and that hobby aspect as well. We've got the competitive play here. I'm really interested to see what happens next with the other areas of their sort of mission statement, as it were.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. So I think overall, I'm really, really happy with the packet. High stakes, I can take it or leave it, but most of the time, the element that I don't love about the scenario doesn't actually matter. So it's here nor there, really. I think just explaining to someone how it works can be a bit cumbersome, but then actually when you start playing, you realise that it's not that big a deal. Every other scenario I think is great, and I wouldn't change anything about all the other scenarios. I think you're right. 7 scenarios is for those 64 round events that have 7 rounds. You can play all of them. I think overall the packet is a big success. I think great scenarios all round. Very active scenarios. I think there's at least every scenario you can score 5 points a turn, which is really good. I really like that. I've got some favourites. I think Fault Line, Pressure Points I really like. I still really like Wolves Out of Hills. They're probably my top 3. Have you sort of made any adjustments to your list because of the packet?
So interestingly, for Gravedigger, so at the last weekend, I took identical lists, just changed. One was Haskell, one was Jake's. It was already a list with 3 solos. It was already a list with 4 units. It was already a list with 5 cohort models. Sorry, so it was already quite a balanced, quite a mixed list. And it seemed to work really well on Steamroller. Obviously, moving now, because obviously that was the first event at January update. I'm looking at other lists now, and that's sort of updating what I'm running for Gravediggers in particular. I am trying to fit really at least 3 solos in most lists. Just because I think that when I found that my opponent did snipe out Iris and Bruno, Paul did a great job of doing that. I was like, oh, I've got 1 solo left, and now my unit's going to have to go over there. So yeah, trying to get three solos minimum. I think cohort models still obviously vital, really big part of the game. But I don't feel I need to have as much complete investment into cohorts. And there's definitely those having units that can work, like you say, just those little groups, those fire groups or fighting groups to go off on their own. I think is a way of thinking about list design. For Dusk, same thing. Just thinking, actually, okay, what can I have that can go off on its own? Is it a unit of cats? Is it a unit of? And then in the centre, is it my my blade masters with some jacks to try and really take that push forward? And I say in the middle of the scenarios. Really happy with it. I also really love the visuals on it, and I would thoroughly recommend. I know people have got it obviously on the app. Obviously, it's a free download. I'd really recommend printing it off for your games because it makes it so much easier sometimes to go right. Actually, let's have a look at it on a big, a bigger piece of paper, and sharing it with your opponent. Yeah, really happy. Really happy with the document generally. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what else comes from Steamforge Games for 2026.
Yeah, agreed. Kelvin from the chat says, for the new players, what scenarios would you suggest taking Defender slash Player 2?
All of them.
Yeah.
So I think like before, so I know that we had a conversation sometimes in our games, Aaron, that sometimes we felt that going first there was not necessarily too much of a downside for going first. I think now going first is still good, but actually going second isn't just a true detriment. Your opponent just doesn't get to just project force now. You either have projecting force going first, or you have scenario pressure going second. I think you can play in both ways. That's from my perspective, anyway.
Yeah, so I think it really is dependent not so much on the scenario, but much more what your list can do. So if you're a list that can't, I'm just going to use some examples here. So Yana with a heavy cohort list, she pushes out a 15-inch threat range with her war beast. So if you are going first with Yana, you really get to put a lot of pressure on everywhere on the board with your list. Now, does that mean you are going to then score everything on your turn 2 as the first player? No. It means a few things, though, really. If your opponent decides to stay out of 15 of your whole army, you've just gained a whole lot of board. And on your turn 2, you can simply go, okay, I'm just going to walk up to some objectives, keep out of your threats, and turn the clock back to them. They've then now got to decide what they can test with, and they've still got to deal with your 15-inch threat. But, conversely, if you are a slower army, and by going first, you don't really put up much pressure, and you've got to decide where you're going to contest on turn 2, perhaps you want to go second. Say you're playing a heavy shooting army. Maybe you want to give them second, so they have to choose where they contest on their turn 2, and you're not getting shot turn 1. You're not getting shot turn 1 anyway. So I think it is really dependent on sort of the matchup, sort of what your list can do, what your opponent's list can do. I don't think in any of the scenarios it's better going second because of the scenario. I think that you have equal opportunity. You gain some things by going first, you gain some things by going second, and each list sort of gains more or less by going first or second, and then depending on what they're playing against. And I realise it's not a very helpful answer because I've not really given you any advice.
My advice to all new players would be to, if you win the roll off, choose to go second. My reason I gave that advice to new players in particular is I think sometimes it's easier to be reactive as a new player than being proactive and then getting caught through overextending, or then not knowing how to sort of retreat back. Whereas actually, if you're a new player, go second. After they've done their first turn, ask the question, what is your longest charge threat range of this model, this model, this model? Stay out. If you can stay out of that and still move up the board a decent amount, do that. And it just gives you the options for your second turn to actually you to sort of project forward some force. That's just if you're a new player, just a really basic thing. Just because I think sometimes as a new player, We've had this with sort of locals as well, with Den and Steve. He's like, if you're going first, sometimes it's okay. Well, I know I need to run up, and that's fine. I run up all my distance as far as I can. You can overextend and then get shot or charged. But also, it's then knowing what to do turn two. If they've not given you a charge or not given you options, as a new player, knowing where to position to contest, knowing where to position to try and threat next turn can be trickier and harder to learn. So that's why I would personally suggest for a new player go second if you can.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think it can sometimes feel rough when you're going second as a new player and someone threatens very far. You feel like,
Yeah,
oh, well, what do I do? But sometimes you don't have to stay out of threat range of everything. If and I give some context here, if you put a 5-man pig boarding party in range of my starved, if I charge my starved into that 5-man pig boarding party and kill it, great. I kill 5 points and you kill my starved, and he's worth 16 points. So,
yeah,
you don't have to always stay out of every threat. Obviously, if I've got a unit that can kill your heavy and it's worth 9 points and your heavy's worth 16 points, I would stay out of that. But, I think learning, and that's really, I think, a really one of the harder part of the games to learn is to learn your position in what can you give away, what can't you give away, what pieces can you trade to then trade up for yourself. Sometimes if you just go, okay, I'm going to stay out of 15 of everything, you really get no board space at all, and then your opponent on their turn two gets a free turn, they pass the clock back to you and be like, okay, we'll do it again. Are you going to move up or not?
I think
um,
there's some models that you go, actually, John, you could charge me if I've got set defense. Good luck if I'm defense 15 and we know that Matt's come down. Good luck trying to move it. You've got things like the Signard shield guys that I think it's Clarity Shield, where they can't be charged by constructs. So just make sure you can go into your constructs threat range and go, well, you can't charge me as long as you can't walk into it. I've taken up that space with a unit, which actually could then hit you back harder. So, but yeah, just my general take is just if you are struggling, you're new, go second, because sometimes it's easier to watch your opponent do something before you choose to do something, especially if you're practicing off clock in those first couple of games.
yeah, I think a good scenario actually, a good example would be Death Shack into like Swordsman, right? You could leave Swordsman in 15s of Death Shack because if he sends Death Shack on a trip to kill your 5 point, 6 point Swordsman, it's happy days. But no, I do agree. I think generally it's easy. It's easier going second as you can react to your opponent's turn two, and then you can decide where you want to try and score and not score. I think sometimes it can you can feel like on your turn two as a player where you don't know what to do. The only thing you can do is run and contest everything, and then you get 50 points of your army kill, and you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't very good. Learning where to contest or even not contest on your turn two sometimes, and say, okay, we'll score because really on your turn two as the first player, very rarely are you going to score your opponent's objectives on their turn two. So sometimes it might be the case, okay, I'm not going to contest your stuff. I'll score three, you'll score three, and then you can start playing the game turn three. And then there's the risk that they come and contest all of your stuff, and then you're massively behind on scenario. But if you kill everything that contests your stuff and then get more, do you get far ahead enough? And I mean, all of that is really the game of War Machine, right? Once you've learned how to attack and damage, and the
Yeah,
game, now learning how much to contest and not contest, and where to position and what not to score and score, that is the game then.
and I think one reason we love War Machine is I having spoken to Matt on Wednesday, it feels at times when you're both of equal level and you've both got that good core understanding, can feel almost like that chess thing of I love it when I play a game of chess when you're both jostling for position. You're like, one of us has got to blink next, and it's who's going to blink first or who's going to piece trade first, and how we're going to do that. And that's when I love War Machine on when I'm playing competitive game. I love War Machine where it's like, oh, that tension. Okay, is it going to work? Is it not? Is it you might have to roll a 7 on 2 dice, and actually, is that going to happen? Does it not? You're going to have to try and spike a roll there. You've got to make sure you've got a trample maybe in a different direction or whatever, and that's what can make it really addictive as well when those plans come together. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I think that's quite a high concept when you first start to play the game. Just enjoy it. Just put your models down. Go second. Watch your opponent do something. And go, basically, I don't want to give you my caster. but otherwise I want to have fun and move up. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally agree. Kelvin says valid point's really helpful. Very true. Vectors, ranges, and trading has been a War Machine thing since day one. Yeah, totally agree. And I think what you were saying there, Dan, about like a game of chess is sort of, I felt like today playing against Valix as a fire quill. You know, Valix has got like a 15-inch range of coming to kill me. I've got a 15-inch range that I can shoot fire Valix and maybe kill him. But then also there's a lots of other threat ranges between our armies we were managing. And you know, like Dean was like just giving me enough to try and tempt me to feat, and I was working out is it worth feating or not.
Yeah.
And you know, like we very gave each other very little pieces until like you know we had less and less, and eventually we had to just sort of try and commit. But it is that game of almost 4D chess, and there's some dice rolls involved, but it's all about moving this piece to here to zone out that piece or trade with that piece or counter that piece. And
Yeah.
it is, like you say, it is like chess. H. Coombs, which I think Sean maybe. I'll be honest, I'm not that scared. Kifgar, I am not scared that Kifgar won't be viable, but I think it's a miss on Steamforge's part not showing the rules. Yeah, we haven't had much Kifguard spoilers, have we?
So I think that's a fair comment. So I think there's been a shift maybe. I don't know if it's from Private Press or from Steamforge Games. There used to be a part where you'd always get the spoiler of the rules before you ordered. The idea being that before you order Food Phantasms, for example, you can see the rules, so you know that you want to, or field guns come to mind last year. Um, Whereas for Kithgard, we haven't had that, and I mean, again, that might be intentional. There might be, I don't know, there might be technical problems. I hope we don't know. But yeah, I personally would prefer to see rules before pre-orders go up. But also, I wonder if actually the rest of the gaming industry doesn't really do that. We just get shown the cool model, then you get the rules afterwards. So, but personally, I'd prefer to see rules, especially if we're talking sort of later in the year when Fane of Nero and Menoth and the rest of Kithgar, I'd like to know rules before I'm ordering max field allowance or if there's a field allowance of certain things.
Yeah, it would be nice. I'll absolutely be blindly ordering max field allowance of Menoff. It'd be nice to see the rules before I do it, but no, it's a good shout from Sean because we do typically get like a lot of spoilers. Like we get to see all the rules right before you order it. I'm not sure if we've seen any like a whole model's rules from Kifguard yet.
I think we've had some spoilers, well, we've had some rules explained, but I think when I heard and they asked me anything from Jamie P or last week, they mentioned how the trapdoors were changing slightly from what was previewed previously or things like that. I might be wrong there, but yeah, I do think it is. I personally think I prefer to see what models rules are before ordering, but that's because I enjoy the game and playing the game more than the other aspects. But for those people that enjoy the models, they'll just go, "Do you know what, stuff it. I'm going to order, a million field guns before they got the 2026 update, and then amazing. And mine should be here on Monday after
Oh,
ordering it."
we must get a game in soon. We haven't played in ages. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe
really.
next week we'll find a time for a game.
Yeah. Are you
Uh,
going? You're at the Journeyman on Wednesday.
I am, yeah, but we need like a proper game.
Yeah, yeah, proper game, but Journeyman's gonna be fun.
That'd be a laugh. Kelvin said during the Steam Force gameplay session earlier this week, did they not mention that rules will be coming out a bit more in the next couple of weeks? Perhaps so. Perhaps we'll get
Maybe.
rules soon. Sean said I'm still buying them, but I want to know what my fun toys do before I order. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Ed said hi ho, hey Ed. As far as I saw in the paint along, there will be some spoilers on Wednesday. Oh, there you go. We
Yeah.
might get rules soon for the Kif Guard. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we've not got too long left, but it might probably worth mentioning our journeyman. Do you want to give us let
Yeah.
the people know what we're doing?
So at the Council Bunker, we're running a Journeyman League. If you're in the local area of the UK, Council Bunker, find it on Facebook or whatever. We're running a Journeyman League, and we're starting at 30 points for the month of February. Then we'll move to 50, then 75, then 100. And we're going to be trying to introduce as many people as we can to War Machine. For us experienced players like myself and Aaron, which are using it as a way of painting, getting cool models on the table. There are some lists that are, you've taken the Fellow Scum
This
winged
is
side
the 30
of it.
points, yeah.
30 points. I've got Boom Boom because I've not painted him yet, and I've not painted him yet. So I'm using the Journeyman League to paint up the rest of my Gravediggers. So by my 100 points list, you haven't seen this yet, Aaron. But by my 100 points list, my Gravediggers as my collection will be fully painted. That's what I'm using mine for. But then there's other people that are trying out completely new factions. We've got a lot of new players coming in, and hopefully it's real great. We've got 5 games going on, so we've got 10 players playing on Wednesday, which is great to see, and we're hoping to have even more in the coming weeks. I'm looking forward to more of a casual, introductory sort of level of War Machine, and trying to get as many people playing and really sort of try and also convert some 40k players locally and other people from other systems. Really excited for it. We'll take some photos. I'm sure you'll put some photos up on Wednesday on the channel of some people's forces. I'm not fully painted yet, but we've got the whole of February to get it painted. I think you are ready though, aren't you? Because you've got some of yours painted already.
I bought them painted, so I can't claim any. I am ready with my 30 points of starter box. It's going to be good fun. Like you say, the objective to us, local to Chelmsford, is just to get some, more eyes on the game. 10 people 1 week playing it at the club will definitely, hopefully, bring some people over asking what you're doing. But we've also got quite a few new faces that have decided to come and join it. I think maybe 3 or 4 new people in total have come and joined it. And we've already got really got quite a big playing group. So that will be really great. I'm really excited for that, and looking forward to getting up in the points and getting people up to speed. And hopefully, when we end at 100 points and people have played 3 months to get there, people are then confident just to go play 100 points by themselves, and we get more games a week of War Machine at the club, at the bunker. So
I think also just quickly, you're running a monthly steamroller, which is great to see. So I'm really looking forward to 21st of February. I don't know if you're going to plug it, but I'll plug it for you. If you're in the UK and you want a game 21st February, contact Aaron, sign up for the steamroller. We managed to have 14 players. We had 2 drops, but 14 players. We played 4 rounds last Sunday. Great venue, got aircon, pub around the corner. We had lovely lunch served really quickly. 4 rounds is quite a lot, but in a day, but actually we got through it. And I think we played straight after the January update. New steamroller will be even quicker and slicker next time. Really, really recommend people coming along. Get to meet us too, and also get to play some more.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are in the UK, please come along. There'll be one every month. In May, I'll take a break because my baby is due, so it'll be a break in May, and hopefully back to it. Maybe June, definitely July. And that would be really good. So between that and the Chelmsford bunker getting bigger, we've had Wayland Games open up locally, and I played the actually. London runs events locally, so certainly now stay south of the UK. We're trying to gain momentum. One day take over the north. It's really good. It's good times. We're going to do a shorter stream today because we've got things to do and places to be, and I'm fairly tired. So we'll wrap it up there. Any closing thoughts on just Steamroller in general then?
I think Steamroller's raving success. I think the January update's been fantastic. We're sort of keeping the hype going. And if you've enjoyed this, like and subscribe. We've only got 6 people left to get to 1,000. So let's keep this going. Even if you've not really enjoyed it, subscribe. Don't watch us again. But let's help us get to 1,000.
If anyone wants to subscribe and hate watch me, I'll take the views. I'll take it. I mean that's a really nice way to end. I started doing this, and then you very quickly joined me doing this. I don't know. I think 8 months ago now, roughly. And I had generally no idea how it would go, and I would have done it anyway if I stayed at 100 or got to wherever. But I'm over the moon to nearly get 1,000, and that opens up some new stuff with YouTube. I'm not really in it for the money, so I don't really care. But it'll be a nice milestone to hit. Kelvin, I will see you on the 15th for the London event. There's also an event on the 15th of February in the Bad Moon Cafe in London. So if you're local to London or in the UK and not local but want to play War Machine, come down on the 15th. We'll lock it up there. It's a goodbye from me.
Bye from me.
And I hope you have a lovely week. And we'll see you